Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session of our iTOOsday. This is Cyber Awareness Month, so we are heading and tackling every topic that's related to cyber and cybersecurity. Welcome. Please do feel free to use the chat and say good morning to the rest of the colleagues online. Let us know where you are joining from. Um, we are blessed to have a bit of sunlight today in Johannesburg. We've been seeing rain for the past couple of days, so welcome. Feel free, and we'll start in the next 2 minutes. Just allowing for everyone to join and feel free and get your cup of coffee, your water, if you like water. Perfect. Today, we have a very special guest. We are looking at a very interesting topic, artificial intelligence. Maybe as a start, we should just ask our brokers on the line to, in a few words, just describe what they think artificial intelligence is about, what it is, where it's going, how do they feel about artificial intelligence, while Ellen will be demystifying this AI for us today. Enhancing staff's efficiency, not replacing humans. Nice one, Kyle.
I love that. The not replacing humans is such a big part of what we talk about. So that's a fantastic point.
Perfect. Artificial intelligence. What comes to your mind when you hear those words, AI? Please do drop a few lines in the chat while we're just allowing for everyone to start. Joanne says we are all going to have to embrace AI, learn as much as we can, and use it to our advantage. Great stuff, Joanne.
So Musa, just a quick note. I can't actually see the chat, so I'm not sure why, but just letting you know.
I've got you covered on that. I'll let you know of all the questions,
Fantastic.
all the comments. Yeah, we will do
Great.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The computer's way of trying to outsmart us. That is what comes to mind. AI is redundant. SI is the new buzzword. Nice one, Ernst. Thoughts on that, Ellen?
AI is the new buzzword. It's interesting. It's a little bit like the revolution of cloud, revolution of hosted. It's something a little bit like that, where it's actually been around for a few decades, but we almost slap a new title on it every single time. So the use of the word buzzword is definitely prevalent in that it has been around for a long time, and it's a big part of the presentation. But I think that where we're at the moment is a little bit like the cloud revolution. We're at a point where it's going to become fundamentally mainstream. So it's a great point.
100%, I agree. Okay, once again, let's get started. I see we are on 3 minutes. Good morning again to our lovely colleagues online. Welcome to today's iTOOsday session, where we will be demystifying AI with Ellen Laurie. So I will do a quick intro and tell you a bit more about Ellen, and then he will kick off and get started on his presentation. Please do sign in. The QR code is on the screen while I quickly introduce my colleague Ellen on the line with me today. So Ellen Laurie has 15 years in technology, starting in the ISP sector where he led large-scale infrastructure deployments and built high availability platforms for enterprise clients. He later headed financial service engagements, partnering with banks, payment providers, and insurers to design compliant mission-critical solutions aligned to POPIA, PCI DSS, and ISO 27001 practices. As founder of Laur, an African-born AI consulting firm, Ellen helps executives accelerate adoption through AI literacy, strategy, and bespoke production systems delivered with a 150 engineer team. He is completing an executive MBA where he where his research develops an AI strategy framework to guide enterprises in embedding AI into their corporate strategy. Technology obsessed and future focused, he is recognized for turning AI from slideware into measurable ROI across diverse markets. Once again, Ellen, welcome to you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
the floor is yours. When you are ready, we can kick off this lovely
Great.
session.
Awesome. No, thank you so
Cheers.
much, Musa. And thank you to everybody for joining. I know just we're up to 681 people. So I am very privileged to be able to speak to you guys today and very thankful for Musa to give me this opportunity. I've done a few of these in the past. Quite luckily, financial services is a huge part of my background. So it's a great time for me to be able to chat to you guys about artificial intelligence in general. So just to go over a little bit of the agenda, what I'll just do is a brief about us section, just to give you a little bit more of an overview. Moose has obviously very kindly given a bio. Just wanted to give you a little bit more overview as to what we do. What I will then do is I'm going to move to a demystification of artificial intelligence section. So I think as one of the comments a little bit earlier, we can see there's a little bit of a buzzword that's floating about. So I just like to demystify it a bit so that we're all off of a fairer wicket when it comes to artificial intelligence. I'll then go through some of the fundamentals and the foundational models that exist, give you an overview as to who's who in the global arms race, as I believe we are in a global arms race. We're then going to hop into some of the financial services specific use cases and specifically some constraints that we all need to be aware of. Obviously, because it's Cybersecurity Month, a huge part of this is around governance, is around what we do with our data to ensure that artificial intelligence is used in a safe way. Also, maybe just a quick section about why artificial intelligence is such a huge factor when it comes to cybersecurity in general. And then if we've got time, maybe some Q&A, and potentially I'll do a quick demo just to show you guys what the future is going to look like in terms of AI agents on the internet. I'd quite like to do that as a section. So kicking off, I'm just going to click to make sure we're working. A quick about us section. So as Musa mentioned, we've been focusing on AI for the last 15 years or so. The partners that I work with, as I've got on this slide here, we've got a team of about 160 engineers that focus specifically on machine learning and artificial intelligence for bigger brands. We also offer bespoke AI strategy and consulting services. So whether that is on a training perspective, a little bit like what we're doing now, or even when we need to embed a fractional chief AI officer into companies, that's effectively what we do so that we can help businesses adapt artificial intelligence into organizational strategy, but also ensure that from a future point of view, that artificial intelligence gets absorbed as a permanent feature in terms of companies to take advantage of what I believe is the biggest revolution in human history. Moving forward, what I just like to do and where I love to start is just to give a quick brief history about artificial intelligence. And the main reason I like to do this is a lot of people think that the birth of ChatGPT or some of these artificial intelligence videos is where artificial intelligence started. But just if we take a look at the slide, you can see that to demystify this, this is not a new field by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, the first mention of AI was probably from a conceptual perspective in the 1930s. So this is pre-World War I. And the first time we saw it in academia was in the 1950s, where Alan Turing was starting to talk about the Turing test and when the machine is going to be able to fool us. There was obviously a comment a bit earlier about the machines fooling us and the use of the computer as to where you can't tell that it's an artificial intelligence in the background. So even as early as the 1950s, we already started to see academic institutions talking about artificial intelligence. Funnily enough, even from a chatbot perspective, you think today there's ChatGPT, there's Gemini from Google. But in fact, the first time we saw the notable chatbot was in the 1960s with the invention of what was a psychometric analysis chatbot called Eliza. And what Eliza did, and remember, just for your guys' perspective, There was no internet, there was no real computer infrastructure at the time, yet they were able to develop a chatbot that was used in psychometric analysis to understand people's moods and to use in psychology rooms to try and help people overcome depression. So you can see that this is not a new field. In fact, it's been around for nearly 100 years. And you fast forward a little bit to almost today, 2017, was when the real explosion of artificial intelligence took place. I'd say before 2017, you look at probably the 1995 era with the explosion of the computers and the explosion of the internet. Google was a huge player, but it was really in 2017 with the launch of ChatGPT. That was really when the first time we saw that there was a real practical application of these artificial intelligence models and an ability for this to become mainstream. And then we fast forward to today, where we can see all kinds of AI being used. I'll touch on some of those specifically a little bit later in the slides, but we're seeing videos being generated through text, or your entire photo being able to be photoshopped without needing Photoshop skills. There's also the advance of artificial intelligence agents, where it can actually replace a lot of what we do as human beings. You think of perhaps taking notes, taking minutes. If you've seen some of those artificial intelligence chatbots join calls like this one, you can see that there's a real replacement, or at least an augmentation of human capability that's taking place when it comes to artificial intelligence. I'd just like to move on to what is artificial intelligence, just so that we can get a foundational understanding for when I'm talking about artificial intelligence a little bit later in this chat. But what I just like to get into, and what I love to chat to guys about, or chat to people about, is that intelligence, as we know it, is separated into two separate forms. The first is a specific intelligence function. You think of my little representation here. This bird knows how to fly. It's got specific intelligence as to how to fly. Whereas a squirrel may not have the specific intelligence to fly. Its specific intelligence is more around being able to forage for nuts, or perhaps build a nest. And then we move on to what is general intelligence. General intelligence is where you adapt, you observe, and you create a capability in order to fulfill a task that would have previously been deemed as specific intelligence. Now, in the context of human beings, that underscores the fact that human beings don't really have specific intelligence that we were made to do. You think that we don't necessarily know how to breathe underwater, but we were able to adapt our general intelligence to put scuba tanks on our backs, and now we can breathe underwater. We weren't necessarily built to fly, yet we're able to build a plane and we're able to fly. And when we look at artificial intelligence is effectively any kind of intelligence that a machine does that a human being would be capable of doing. Why I love this, and to demystify artificial intelligence, is even something as simple as a calculator can be seen as artificial intelligence. If we go back to the definition, anything that a computer does that a human being can do, you think of maths, the abacus, you think of a calculator, all of these things encompass artificial intelligence. So what I love about this is that it really demystifies this. It's not this amazing technology that's only just sprung up that can do anything. It's something that we've been working out throughout human history, and it's just that it's advanced over time and now has become mainstream, that we're talking about as much as we are today. Which allows me to move on to the next slide, is where are we? Sorry, my slide just went a little bit quickly there. Sorry, just got to put it back here. Where are we in the landscape of artificial intelligence, and where are we looking to go? So all of the companies that I've been talking about, Google, Elon Musk with Grok, ChatGPT and Microsoft, some of the Chinese models, they're all trying to find a way to create general intelligence with artificial intelligence, i.e. an artificial intelligence that can just observe a task and then create a capability to do it. But the honest reality where we're at the moment is that artificial intelligence today is actually very narrow. So it's actually very specific in terms of the tasks that it does today, meaning that the capabilities of artificial intelligence and what I'm talking to you about today, as much as it may look like it's generally intelligence, we're actually very far from the future of the AI being this replacement of human beings, which really should guide the way that we use artificial intelligence today. And we'll move on to specifically how we use it in later slides. But it really gives us this view as to when we're using artificial intelligence, each of the tools that have been built are used in a specific context. You think ChatGPT with the answering of questions or the production of PowerPoint or Excel sheets, each of these models is very specifically designed to conduct and do its own task. It's not generally intelligent at the moment. Just to chat about some of the various terms, if we think that it's narrowly intelligent, how are we training it then? Well, there's 4 different ways we're training it. The overarching term that we've got for artificial intelligence training is something called machine learning, which is effectively the machine learning to do a task better over time. There's several ways that engineers do it today. The one is supervised learning, where it is an engineer conducting the training of that artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence taking that information and becoming better. There's then a term called semi-supervised learning, where it gets that data but doesn't continuously need a human being to allow it to take the next steps to get better. You then get unsupervised learning, where there's no human being at all. So it continuously tries to iterate and get better on its own data. And then the last one is a very important function called reinforcement learning, where it effectively marks its own homework. So what it does in reinforcement learning is it takes the data, it tries to produce an answer, it then checks against its own answer, whether that answer is right or wrong. It then tries to iterate and create a better version of itself going forward. And that reinforcement learning is effectively where we are today, where the computer is continuously getting better. So when you think of artificial intelligence, it is almost a living and breathing thing, continuously evolving, continuously getting better, rather than something that's just there to perform that task. It does get better at that task over time. If we look at then the global landscape, so what is it that each of these guys are doing, and what are the differences between these? You can see that I've listed 6 basic broad categories. OpenAI and Microsoft, they're a more enterprise-focused artificial intelligence company, where Google and DeepMind is focusing on multimodal, as in being able to generate images, being able to generate video, being able to generate podcast type, so audio type outputs. And then obviously Google is very much into education. Anthropic is almost the third of the big 3, which is a more program heavy large language model. We've got Meta, which is Mark Zuckerberg. And I'll speak to you about closed versus open weights on the right-hand side, but effectively they were a little bit late to the party. And as any technology, when you're a little bit late to the party, you need to make it an open source platform rather than a closed source platform. You've got Amazon doing the managed services. So you guys would have seen Amazon went down yesterday, but they offer a lot of these software that we know today. And then there's a lot of these Chinese models. Now, the Chinese models are very interesting. You would think that there's a lot of data constraints and data issues when it comes to China. And I think largely that's probably fair to say. And that's obviously a huge part of financial services and talking about how we use AI. But what the Chinese did is they were able to show that we are able to use these artificial models and replicate them much cheaper than we did in the past. So in the past, we thought that we would need these enormous data centers with tons of power, lots of compute in order to build these large language models. Then China came around, and I mean, it's almost not a joke. The guys were able to do what had previously been done in an entire data center on a laptop, which just showed that this technology is advancing much faster than we thought. If we look at the strategic differences, you've got closed versus open weight models. What the difference is between that, and I always like to use another analogy. You think of Apple versus Samsung. Apple is this closed ecosystem. It works well with its other products. You think of an Apple keyboard, an Apple mouse, your Apple earphones, your Apple phone. Everything within its own ecosystem works really well with each other, but it typically doesn't like to have other software, other hardware within that model. It also doesn't allow other people to build on top of the technology and the inventions that they did. And that's the exact same thing that we find with these large language models. The proprietary ones that were there first, the OpenAIs, the Googles, and the Anthropics, these are what we call black holes or black boxes. We don't really know how they're being trained. We're not able to see the code underneath. We can't lift the hood and try and replicate it, where the likes of Meta and Twitter, because they started a little bit later, so Grok being Twitter, they've opened this up and allowed companies to build on top of their models. So that's a difference between the two. Inference at edge versus cloud. Now, this is a very important consideration for financial services. A lot of this can't sit in the cloud because of the high volume of traffic that takes place in financial services, but also there's sovereignty of data. So data in South Africa and throughout the rest of Africa, there's very heavy regulated industry. You think of ISO 27001, the Personal Protection of Information Act, or PAPIA. It says that the data has to live within our borders. Now, that's a huge issue if you think of the Chinese models, you think of Meta. None of these companies have got infrastructure in Africa as yet. So when we're using AI, we've really got to think about this as a model to say that for some of it, we can't just host it within their environments. We have to look at ways to build this locally, partner with the company to do it locally, or figure out some way that that information sits within our borders. Then it's agent platforms versus raw models. So an agent or an AI agent, it goes back to the word of agency. It can work without supervision, which is the definition of agent. I'd love to show you a bit of an example in about 20 minutes time. It's where you give an instruction to an artificial intelligence agent and it goes and executes the task. Now, this is the big buzzword of 2025. Last year, large language model was the big buzzword, or generative AI. This year, it's all about agents and building these capabilities where you give the instruction to the agent and it fulfills it. But again, we will look at that a little bit more details shortly. And then retrieval first versus fine tune first. This again is back to marking your own homework or fine tuning it before you release it to the public. This is just where they're at in terms of the global arms race. The likes of OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic are going to ensure that they are completely innovating when they're releasing these models, where some of the other ones are just trying to prove capability and then retrieving and marking their own homework a little bit later. If we talk about AI capability specifically, sorry, I'm clicking a little bit too fast again. There's three broad terms when we think about artificial intelligence. The first, and I'm sure we've all played with this or used it in some way or form in our own lives, is generative AI. The ones that we all know and we've probably used before. You'll also see when you Google, there's an AI answer that comes up now. But that's where you insert an instruction via text and you get text back. You think about I've used ChatGPT before, for example, to fix my coffee machine. So that's text to knowledge experts in order to fix the coffee machine. That's an example of text-based generative AI. But you also get code-based assistance. So where you insert text or code, and the artificial intelligence is then able to fix that code for you. And what we're moving to, and what we're seeing huge advancement in the industry, is where the companies are able to produce images or audio or video. Anybody who follows Donald Trump over the weekend, you would have seen he produced a number of these deep fake videos of himself in a fighter jet dropping what looked like sewage on the No Kings protesters. Or where he's sitting in the Oval Office with a crown on his head and he's knighting a lot of his the staff underneath him. We're seeing that through just using text, we're able to produce full-length videos without needing to give the AI the actual source video, and it's able to create this just from text. So we're moving into a world where anything that you can imagine is going to be able to be created through generative AI. Microsoft the other day released models that is able to do text to Excel sheets, for example, which is quite useful if you think about it from a financial services perspective, or perhaps even from a brokerage perspective. You can interact with this agent that's got access to your data and get it to build the Excel sheets for you, to do the retrieval, to do the lookups, to do the complicated sheets. It's a text to work output that we're moving on to. So there's really a lot happening in the generative AI space. The second one is agentic AI. So again, we've touched on this briefly, But what we're doing, and I like to anthropomorphize this. So the word anthropomorphic means to make human. So I like to give it a word or give it a name. You have examples of executive assistant AIs where it effectively performs the role of a PA, a personal assistant or an executive assistant. So it can book your meetings for you. It can manage your calendar. It can answer emails that it deems not high enough priority. It can even filter those emails for you. Or you can think of a marketing assistant that can go and do the research, create some high level copy, make an image or two, and then automatically post these on social media. Or you could have a HR agent that can proactively go into your company. It can go and recognize when people are taking leave. It can proactively see that it's someone's birthday. It can assist with HR issues. It can assist with retrieving documentation. Lots of different ways to use this AI agent. And then the one that we've probably seen and is probably irritating a lot of people is the AI agents that are calling us all the time, where it's this cold calling and it's an actual AI agent on the back end. It's not great at the moment, but we're moving to a world where everything is going to be an AI chatbot that you're eventually chatting to. What we believe at Laur is that, and you can see with the last point I've got over here, is that human in the loop is a critical component to ensure that your brand is staying first and foremost customer centric and is staying true to the core of your culture and the values that you embed. And what we see is that no matter how much you try and automate, there's never a workflow that becomes entirely agentic or entirely part of an AI process. I'll give you an example, self-driving cars. Self-driving cars, we're seeing that America is adopting this in a big way. But the question is, what if this car kills somebody? Who ultimately is going to be responsible for it? And that's a huge part of human in the loop, is that there's an accountability perspective, there's a human green lighting that needs to happen. So when we're thinking about building out these solutions and these services, we have to consider, where does the human stay and what is that going to look like in future? My opinion about the future is we're going to have humans managing teams of AI agents. So we're going to move from people being able to execute individual tasks to people managing a team of AI agents in order to execute tasks that are way beyond what they were doing in the past. I'll give you an example. Graphic designers. A graphic designer in the past may have been there to create an image or a video, and that used to be their job. That's now moved into a creative working with the image generating agent that then is able to pass these images to the video creation agent that is then able to pass this into a campaign agent. The campaign agent will then put that together, that will eventually then be given to the social media agent, who will then post it onto Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., etc. You'll see then it moves from a person that's able to do a single task to a person managing an end-to-end process with a team of AI agents underneath them. So the future is looking very interesting when it comes to how our business are going to change, and we've got to keep this in mind going forward. That really goes quite nicely into multimodal and RAG. RAG is just a term called retrieval augmented generation. Again, that's really just marking your own homework, ensuring that there's policy attached to anything you create, brand guidelines, regulation, governance, etc., etc. But you can get to a point where you're using multimodal agents, a bit like that example that I gave you, in order to execute on tasks. When we look at financial services specific use cases, and this is always an exciting part of this discussion, you can see that I think I've given 7 different areas where I believe, or I just wanted to give an example of where AI could make a huge difference in financial services. As I mentioned earlier, distribution and marketing is a huge focus for businesses at the moment, where we're getting into a point where you're going to increase conversion. You're going to get more personalized recommendations. You can have AI agents embedded into your website, where the AI agents are able to answer questions in real time. You might see that your client is about to press order or press engage, but is maybe stuck, and the AI agent could intervene. This increases conversion rates and customer lifetime value. The second area that I looked at is servicing and operations. So policy questions and answer, knowledge base, faster resolution to tickets, First call resolution is being handled by an AI agent rather than a human, where the human is providing an oversight role and the AI agent is then able to provide the support function. Now, there's obviously a number of major reasons why this is very helpful. Firstly, clients are getting their queries handled much faster because the AI agent, whether that's over WhatsApp or even over a phone call, is able to look at this issue and sort it out in real time. But also it frees up the human beings to look at more specific issues, where there's something more bespoke that needs to be done for the client, etc., etc. That's another example of AI in financial services. Risk and underwriting. Now, this is an interesting area. You could see that instead of the human being by itself putting together these policies, you can have the AI agent look at trend analysis over the last 50 years and ingest so much data that would never be able to be done by even a team of human beings. And you could get very specific risk and underwriting policies that then take place because of the AI agent being able to personalize this. So you can see that the policies would be very, very much catered to individuals, but also you could open up your market base to address markets that you previously weren't able to using AI. This obviously also makes turnaround time quicker, reduces error rates, improves accuracy, and expedites the processing of claims, etc. That brings me neatly onto claims. We've already touched on it, making it quicker. So we can move straight onto IT and engineering. So IT and engineering, we're moving into a world where we're augmenting our engineers. So people are able to produce more. It doesn't take so long to get to be stuck in demo or quality and assurance. You're able to move it from demo into production much quicker. So you're seeing that a lot of tickets are being reduced, etc., etc. Finance and treasury, document classification and extraction, expedited processing again, improved accuracy again. We're really able to augment using the power of AI to ensure that these processes are done even more, in a better way and in a quicker way. And then I obviously touched on HR and legal. You're ending up in a place where you're augmenting these AI into your processes in order to supercharge these functions. So you can see I've just given 7 different use cases. The world is our oyster. We always say at Law, the best thing about AI is it can do everything, and the worst thing about AI is that it can do everything. It's a case of needing to focus and ensure that we're implementing these AI in a manner that makes most sense, that we are able to extract the most value from it. But you can see a lot like the electricity revolution, we're going to end up in a place where AI is going to touch everything in our lives. So much like we plugged everything in or we connected everything to the internet, the next enormous revolution is that things are going to automate and that there's going to be a lot of AI. So this isn't a revolution that we should take lightly, and it is something that's going to seriously affect our businesses and affect our customers. If we look at tailored AI solutions that I like to give to clients, you never move straight to level 3. There's 3 levels that we need to take into account. And just to give you a quick high-level view is what we mean there, is that the waves of AI is going to happen over three waves effectively, or 3 levels. What we mean by that is that you can't just jump straight into a fundamentally different way that your business operates. You have to move through the levels and continuously look to iterate and make your businesses better. The first one is, can you use artificial intelligence to do what you have at the moment, either faster, cheaper, or more efficiently? So that would be what we would consider a level 1 intervention. A level 2 intervention would be, can we take that same workflow and actually produce better output? So can it actually produce something better at the end of this? If you think of it in another example, video generation, the first one might be, can we do the video quicker, cheaper, or more efficiently? The second one might be, can we make more and better quality video? That's a good example of the 2 just in the video generation. And then the third one is, can we use AI to create something novel, something that hasn't been done before? So here we have an example, self-assembling agentic workflows. It's something that we haven't considered before. So an example of a level 3 intervention might be the Uber revolution, where previously we used to take taxis and give cash or give them a call. We moved on to an app-based system where you could access any of these taxi drivers at a click of a button, that would be an example of a level 3 intervention. So when we're talking to clients, and specifically when we're looking at financial services, you have to assess where and which of these levels you need to employ into which department, and then continuously look to throw these into your businesses in order to improve the various functions. Now we go into some of the cybersecurity awareness issues. So obviously we are in cybersecurity month this month. So there's a ton of things that we've got to be aware of when it comes to artificial intelligence. You would have heard some of the classic ones like artificial intelligence hallucinates. What that really means is that the artificial intelligence is always going to try and answer your question. So if you give it a bad instruction or potentially a vague instruction, it's going to go and try and find the information in order to execute on that task. Now, what that means a lot of the time is that it'll either cite sources that don't exist or is potentially wrong for that particular example. Just to give a real world example, it was this year where both America and South Africa saw lawyers stand up in a court of law and cite case law in their particular case that they were working on that didn't exist. So these lazy lawyers went onto ChatGPT. They asked for the ChatGPT to put together a case that they could argue for their customers. And upon deeper look, we found that these large language model had actually hallucinated these use cases. So you can think of how crazy that is in terms of the context and the irresponsible use of that artificial intelligence. Now, this is infinitely more complicated in the financial services world, where if you're giving it financial data and expecting a fantastic result, you may end up in a world where you're giving bad advice or you're taking a bad underwriting risk on a client because the use of the AI wasn't done according to policy or governance. Obviously, we chatted about it a little bit earlier where it comes to POPIA, cross-border data transfer. Now, the main thing that I need to get across in this particular discussion is that when you're uploading content onto these large language models, most of them do not have South African data centers. So if you're uploading sensitive information of the client or of your business, you are actually infringing on POPIA and you are infringing upon ISO 27001. You may end up in a world where it either gets flagged by the auditor and then it's obviously going to give your auditing team a hell of a headache. But you could even get to a point where as bad as you lose your certificate because of the policies that the employees are using. So both from a leadership perspective, but also as individual users, we have to be super diligent when it comes to the use of these AI, because you could end up in a position where you're uploading sensitive information and you could deeply affect the policies and the governance of your company. And from an individual perspective, my rule of thumb is if you wouldn't post it on Facebook, you wouldn't post a photo or your financial statements, etc., you shouldn't be posting this onto artificial intelligence that's publicly available. And companies should look to build their own bespoke artificial intelligence to be able to work on these particular and use case examples. So what I mean by that specifically is that within Teams, for example, if your company uses Teams, you could build an AI agent that never leaves your environment or your infrastructure. So that means that it's hosted locally, it's only accessing data that's within your servers, and it's giving you information that's specific to your company. These are not publicly available at the moment when it comes to OpenAI. You can get Microsoft to build bespoke for you, but largely that's where companies like mine come in, and we help companies to build out these specific requirements to build out AI capabilities. And I've just given a couple of other examples, like a triage agent that's able to put together a lot of the checklist type stuff that a human might have done in the past, and then pass it to a human to classify and move it further down the workflow. That's just an example of human in the loop. Moving on, this is just an example of what an architecture pattern might look like. You could do a 90-day plan where you select 2 high-level and high-impact projects as pilots. You ensure that there's a governance quick start framework. You ensure that your data readiness is there, that your data is accurately labeled and accurately stored so that the AI can access this. And then you put into place an adoption plan, some very specific notes to add here is that you've got to ensure that your governance is correct. You've got to ensure that you're protecting your employees and that you're thinking about the person throughout this process, because you could end up in a place where you're creating artificial intelligence that harms people or impacts people's livelihoods. So it's obviously something that we all need to think about. And then these are just two examples of what it would look like: an advisor or an agent, or an underwriting co-pilot. Just some of the last some of the last considerations that I'd like to go through. And sorry, I am going through this relatively quickly because I do want to do a quick demo at the end of this, and then we do want to leave some time for Q&A. But just some of the things that you've got to ensure that you've got is that there's a good inventory and validation process in place. What that means is that you catalog all of your AI initiatives. You ensure that there's a version control and that they don't augment within each other. There's a good change control process. You ensure that there's no hallucination. You ensure that from a prompt injection and data leakage, it's addressed via your policies. And then operational controls is in place so that you don't release anything that could be fundamentally harmful. And then one of the main things to consider is that artificial intelligence can be expensive. So both from an engineering and a talent perspective when you're building this, but also through its usage. You think you have to pay for every single image being generated or every single query that's being done. A financial services company that might be doing millions of transactions a minute, you don't necessarily want that to be done by artificial intelligence. So it's obviously something to consider when you're building out these solutions. There's obviously horses for courses, and you may end up with a really expensive model just through sheer volume. And I speak about volume scenarios and latency. Security and integration, you need to ensure that it's robust in terms of how you're adopting it. Admin controls and exit strategy, and then obviously success and experimentation design. Before I move on to conclusion, I just wanted to show you guys a quick demonstration of where we are in terms of the world of AI. Now, the tool that I'm demonstrating here, and Musa, if you can just comment, are you able to still see my screen now that I'm on this browser? If you could just give me a thumbs up or...
Yes, I can.
You can still see it. Okay, great. So just to bear in mind, this particular tool is a publicly available tool. So this isn't specific for enterprises, but I love it as a kind of an example of where AI is going. And I love it because it gives a real world view as to how these AI agents actually work. The second thing to just bear in mind, and I know that I'm giving a couple of caveats before showing it, is that it's in alpha phase, i.e. it's still in its earliest form of testing. So a lot of this doesn't necessarily do it in the way that you may expect, but it's a demonstration of capability rather than a tool that's been released to the public. So this is something that I was able to join just because I'm a part of a group of reviewers and I was able to get early access, but largely just the caveat is that it is in super alpha phase. So I just want to give you an example of what an AI agent looks like in practical terms. Now, this is an example that I like to call, let's call it your AI agent or your secretary agent. So this you could see as an AI agent you've built within your company that acts as your secretary. So for example, you need to fly to Cape Town, let's say tomorrow. Then you could say to your secretary agent, I would like you to book flights for me. Flights for me to Cape Town. I live near Lanseria Airport. I need to fly in as early as possible and leave as late as possible. Find the best flight for me. So I'm just going to give it a second. It's busy identifying some of the steps, and then I'm going to just click on the work that it's doing. Sorry, I just want to click on the working. So as you can see, so I'm just going to lift up my hands. So no hands. I'm not touching the handlebars while we're looking at this. I just want to make sure it's not paused. But you can see I'm not touching the screen, and the AI agent is putting together a flight from Lanseria. I don't know, now it's hallucinated. You can see it's already hallucinated. East London, it's done on the left-hand side, and Cape Town on the right-hand side. I did caveat that this is in alpha phase, so it's more a showcase of capability. Oh, no, it's picked up. It's picked up that it's made an error. So it's busy changing it from East London. and it's going to change it from East London to Lanseria. We just need to give it a second here. There are types in Lanseria. It also depends on how heavily utilized it's been in terms of how quickly it's being done. This really is more a showcase of capability rather than that this gets it right or wrong. I just want to show you guys what an AI agent looks like. So now it's clicked on Lanseria, it's clicked on Cape Town. It's then going to find the earliest flight. And where we're moving to in the world is that this AI agent will even be able to book and pay for the flights that we're going to have. Now, this has got a lot of implications for businesses. On a corporate perspective, you can imagine you're going to have a project manager agent, or a marketing agent, or an HR agent, research agent, etc., workforce manager agent. But we're going to move into a world where we're no longer necessarily doing the tasks ourselves, but we're getting the AI agent to do it for us. So this demonstration is a little bit slow, so I'll just pause. I'll just stop this one because this one is taking a little bit longer. I'll just move on to a different demo. So we'll just stop that one, and I'll just give you another example. So for example, the other day, I wanted to find the best tablet for use in professional worlds. So you could say, I want you to research the cheapest tablets to use for work, and ultimately I want you to buy it for me based on your research and based company that sells it. It's another example. So this is now an example of a shopping agent where you're giving the agent an instruction. You can see it's busy taking a look at the cheapest laptops that it's busy putting together. And now it's asking me, it thinks that the Samsung Galaxy Tab A9 from Incredible Connection for 2499 is the cheapest. And then I'm going to say, yes, please proceed. You're moving into a world where your shopping agent is now going to be able to buy, and I just want to show you the work. I always just have to click on it. It's actually going onto the Incredible Connection website. It's selecting the tablet that it wants you to buy. And if you allow it to, you'll be able to give it access to your credit card, and it'll be able to check out on this. And you'll see that it was able to find one that was also on sale. So it's just a cool example of two different types of agents. You see, this one's even going to the secure checkout. Now, I haven't given it my credit card details because it's obviously still in alpha phase. And at this point, it'll actually ask me to sign into my Incredible Connection account. But again, no hands. This is not some witchcraft or trick that I'm showing you. It's obviously an example of an AI agent and where the world's moving to. But this just gives you an example of what we're looking at from an agentic AI perspective. So here it's asking me to just sign in at the end to be able to buy this. Now, there's a couple of implications that I like to just demonstrate for you guys. It is that, firstly, the world of SEO, where Google is going to dominate search, is busy falling on its head. Many companies need to ensure that from a marketing perspective, that these AI agents is finding them on the web, and is, when you're asking, for example, what's the best policy company or broker that I can use, that your company is being found by these AI agents when it comes to the search functionality that these AI agents are doing. But obviously also secondly is that it's an underserved market. So what we saw is that roughly 0.8% of search is being done by agents at the moment. This is changing exponentially. We've got early indications that we might get as much as up to 3% by the end of the first quarter 2026. Now, 3% doesn't sound a lot, but Google does 2 billion searches a minute. So 3% of 2 billion searches a minute is a significant number, and it's an underserviced market. So it's something we've all got to think about. The last one, and this is just because I don't have that much time, I just wanted to show you guys an example of a marketing agent. And what I want to do is we'll maybe just use my wife again, because I don't want to infringe on anybody's papier. But what you can do is you can set up what I like to call a cold lead generation, or a cold to warm lead generation agent. So what I will say here is, I want you to find an individual called Amy Laurie, who works for Oliver Moore, and send her a warm intro message based on recent posts she has done, and send an invite to connect on LinkedIn. So what I want to show you with this is we're moving into a world, and this is obviously a little bit terrifying, but very relevant for the cybersecurity month, is that we're moving to a world where even the messages that we're going to get on LinkedIn or WhatsApp or Facebook, or the way that we're going to be interact with, is going to be done by an agent. So you can see that this agent is now taking control of my LinkedIn. It's now on the search function and the search bar of my LinkedIn. So now it should go to the search bar at the top left. It'll type in my wife's name, Amy Laurie. Amy Laurie, because obviously we're connected, is going to come at the top. It's then going to go onto her profile. So again, you can see I'm not touching anything while this is happening, but that we're going to click on Amy's name, and it's then going to go and take a look at her profile. Well, okay, it's taken an extra step to say which company she works for, but it doesn't really matter. Again, what I'm really trying to showcase to you guys is that this is where we're moving to, rather than it gets it 100% right. There you can see that the company is Oliver Agency, so it's fine. And I'm just going to pause it quickly and help it so that it just goes a bit quicker. This is the right, just from an interest of time. Now we can resume. Just from an interest of time, I just want to hurry it up a bit because I know we've only got 10 minutes left. And then what it'll do is it'll go and take a look at the profile, and it sees that Amy's posted these various things. It'll then put together a message in the bottom right-hand side where my messages are being sent. Something about first-degree connection. Okay, straight to the message button. And what we'll end up with, and I'll, just out of an interest of time, because it is taking a little bit longer, but when I did this previously, is if you look at the messages that I sent to my wife, is it ended up looking something like, sorry, it's just taking a second. It looked like something like this. Hi, Amy. I noticed your recent post about Alan Laurie's feature on ENCA discussing AI and exciting growth of law. It's inspiring to see how you bridge creative design at Oliver. With your support and innovation, I'd love to collect further and exchange details to set up a meeting in the near future. That's something that I was able to do without doing any of that work, any of that research, coming up with that message, and it's sent through to Amy. Just another example of how we're moving into a world where the machines are going to be taking care of a lot of this for us. But from a cybersecurity awareness perspective, is we're going to have a lot of deep fakes that are going to message us in this format. We've seen from security breaches where these AI agents are impersonating CEOs or CFOs and joining Zoom calls and getting people to authorize payments or expose bank details. You can create entire videos of your CEO instructing you to do something. So we've got to be very much aware from a cybersecurity perspective of how we're interacting with people, with agents, etc., etc. And we're moving to a future of AI and of AI agents. Okay, I think, Musa, I've got about 7 minutes left. I know that we mentioned we wanted to do some Q&A at the end of this. Sorry, I did rush the last bit a little bit just because I didn't have that much time. So I don't know if there's any Q&A we can handle in the last 7 minutes. Just for everybody's benefit, and I did mention to Musa and team, Musa will be compiling all of the questions that everybody sends and sending it through to me on email, and I will respond to him so that every one of our questions get answered. But we just wanted to do some live at the end of this. Thank you. Musa, you're on mute, or I can't hear you.
Can anyone else hear me? Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. You're just a little bit soft, but I can hear you.
Okay, let me get closer to my laptop. Thank you so much, Ellen, for that powerful presentation. Wow. We're still amazed by where AI is and what AI can do for us. There have been a couple of comments and questions. I will jump straight into that. The first question was around what is the tool that you were using? What's the name of the tool that you were using at the end there for your demo? If you don't mind sharing that
The
for.
the company is a company called Perplexity, which used to be just a research large language model, but they created a browser called Comet, Comet. But like I said, it's entirely in alpha phase. So if you guys do want to use it, it's very experimental at this point. I think that they've now allowed the public to access it, but just please be aware that that is an alpha version of the tool and that there's some safety concerns around it, etc. So maybe just before you use it as mainstream, just realize that some of the tools I'm showing you is from some of the forums that I belong to. It's not necessarily the fully ready product.
Perfect. Thank you. Looking for the next questions. So here's a question from Chantel. She's saying, if client information is on a doc and shared on AI for a specific task, it's not relating to their personal information, can we not ask the AI agent to keep the client details confidential and not save or share their personal details to any database?
That's an awesome, awesome, awesome question. There's a couple of settings that you can enable or not enable, and I can maybe even show it to you while I'm chatting, that we all need to be aware of. So I'm just going to answer this in two ways. The first way, I'll just share my screen. On the bottom left-hand side of any of these large language models, you can see my name over there. On the bottom left-hand side, under settings, and which one is it? Apps and connectors, I think, or personalization. Hold on, schedules, data control. Under data control. So every single one of these large language models has got a setting called improve the model for everyone or something like that. It's not that they're all called that. If you click on this and you read what that actually means, allow your content to be used to train our models, which makes ChatGPT better for you and everyone who uses it. That all sounds good and well, but what that actually is saying is we are saving every single thing that you put on it. By default, it's switched on. So everybody should look on their settings and just switch that off. So that's the first comment, is that there is a means to be able to stop the model from saving your content. But the second point is that companies should really be putting together their own AI agents when it comes to customer data. And then the framework that we put together for customers for these agents will be able to be put in such a way, as mentioned, I think you said Chantal, apologies if that's the wrong name, that has got these frameworks that says do not do, etc., etc., etc. But largely, in my opinion, you need to be using the one that your company has green-lighted. For many companies, this is Copilot through Office 365, and then you should largely be okay. But when it comes to using this in your own personal perspective, whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini, we should be very cautious by the data that we're putting on there.
Perfect. So I'm just looking at the next question. You've shown the agent interacting autonomously with third parties. What's your model governance strategy for integrating autonomous agent tools like Perplexity Agent, Alpha versus deterministic workflow tools like NN8, particularly around explainability and model overrides?
Okay, that's a very technical question. I really appreciate that question. So tools
Yeah.
like N8N and OpenAI's Agent Builder is a framework that you put together. So you can select how these modules interact with each other, and largely the APIs that they connect into will be built with the security and the governance in mind. So if you're talking about an agent that's autonomously performing a task on a tool like N8N, the APIs that you're building into will largely determine the governance around how that's done and ensuring that there's a security component to that. But secondly, largely what we need to get to is, again, the separation of proprietary tools that are done in your company and personal tools that you're putting together in the likes of N8N, my opinion is that you should be using the tool that your company provides for you in order to do this function. So what I mean by that is Copilot has got an agent builder built into it. And so does Gemini. So you don't necessarily have to go to tools like N8N anymore in order to build that kind of function. It was a very long question, so I may also have to look at that afterwards and see that I answered that correctly. And if I didn't, please feel free to reiterate it, and I'll respond to you by email.
Definitely. I see we are at the top of the hour, but I'll just take one more question, Ellen, in closing. From a peer perspective, external AI meeting recordings and summaries are a concern to me. Do you agree with this, particularly when we discuss client information? I think that's a very good one. Yeah.
Brilliant question. And it's exactly what I'm referring to each time, that some of these tools won't have an African storage facility where some of them do. So you've got to be incredibly careful when considering which tools you're using to record and which tools you're using to transcribe, etc., especially when it comes to sensitive information. It goes back to kind of what I keep referring to, which is it should really be on the company to ensure that these tools are available to staff to be able to record and to be able to store this information. And then it's on companies to ensure that from a policy, a regulation, and a governance perspective, that where the data is saved is POPIA compliant and isn't done in such a way that could compromise the individuals that have been recorded. So that's a fantastic question. It goes again back to it's incumbent on the leadership and the IT teams of companies to put frameworks and tools together, and then obviously incumbent on the users to utilize the tools responsibly and not use tools that are going to store this information overseas. Fantastic question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we will end our session here for today. We are a little bit over time, but yeah, thanks so much, Ellen, for your wonderful presentation today and sharing of these insights. We do note that AI, or the use of AI, is an emerging risk. And as you rightfully noticed, or you've noted, that the directors and officers of companies can be exposed, that some professional indemnity policies can be triggered because of the use of AI when people are referencing or defending people in court. There can be some data breaches, so a cyber insurance policy will also be triggered. Yeah, there is a lot on the play, and we will be looking out for that. I will be sending Alan the remainder of the questions. Then he will get in touch with all of us individually on those questions that we couldn't take. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a lovely Tuesday further. See you next week, Tuesday, for another session of iTOOsday. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Alan.
everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.